Nashville, Tennessee is home to some of the world's finest musicians, from country music to R&B to hip-hop and everything in between. If you've heard it, Nashville's got it. But ever since I moved to the city in 2013, I've met some incredible musicians who fall in between the cracks. Amazing musicians who are passionate about that other music. So I'm not here to talk about the music you've probably heard. I'm here to introduce you to them, illuminate their music, and share their stories. My name is David Rodgers. I'm an improviser, composer, and pianist here in Music City, USA, and I want to welcome you to the Improviser's Corner. On today's episode, we have our first saxophonist, one of Music City's finest composers and improvisers, David Williford. We discussed his take on improvisation and his love for gardens. So I'm trying to remember when we first met.
Cubides? When we first met, like the first time.
Yeah, was it a jam session?
I heard you play at when VJ Ayer came to Vanderbilt. Wow. I heard you play There Will Never Be Another You. I was like, who's this guy? He knows what he's doing.
That was an interesting class.
Yeah, well, I think my perception of it was he was trying to be like heavy-handedly corrective with it. Like,
oh wow,
we're describing the way that harmony has worked.
Yeah.
To me, he's like correcting away from that. Like,
interesting.
Like D minor doesn't mean Dorian. Like, get your head out of that and just like learn counterpoint and voice leading.
Do you find that helpful?
What's that?
Vijay's approach, which is that there are no rules.
Like genre-specific rules, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's like how you get into incorporating other musics into your improvising, which is the whole thing.
Interesting.
Like if Wilco isn't valid, and then what do you like? If you write a chord progression or treat something the way that Wilco treats it, have you like betrayed yourself or something? No. Like Wilco and the Allman Brothers and African folk music are all valid ways to approach whatever. And I may be totally reading way too much into this.
No, I think it's interesting.
Thing that VJ said 3 years ago.
Right.
I don't know.
We have selective
Who knows?
So we don't
I don't know. Call him.
That's interesting you bring that up. You're someone whose music I personally find deeply inspiring for a number of reasons. One of which is the way you've managed to synthesize so many different influences into a sound that still sounds unique. I joke all the time, you look like Ben Wendell, but
oh God,
that's a compliment. But you have your own distinct sound, and I'm wondering what that process has looked like for you. Was it an intentional thing when you're writing and trying to take specific elements, or do you just naturally synthesize through your playing and through your composition?
I don't think it's as like master plan based as you're painting it to be, which I'm into. Like, keep describing my music that way, please. But it's more like I just want to write by whatever means possible. Like whatever can get me to putting something out into the world goes, and I don't have to share it with anybody if it ends up sucking. But like, if I write something because I'm thinking about, some indie rock tune or something, and it turns into a piece of music, then that I wrote something, because I personally write very slow and can get blocked up and tied up pretty easy. So whatever is gonna get the stuff out of my head into the universe is good, and that's the music that I think resonates with me. More and more, the longer I get away from the really kind of tunnel vision of being in school, for better or for worse. I'm not just saying that's necessarily a bad thing. The more I'm like, man, Time After Time is a great song. That's, like stuff like that. I'm like, that's just wonderful. That's just like a simple pop tune or whatever, but that gets me going, and that's okay.
Yeah, something that, and I only bring this up because, the couple house concerts that I've gone to, I've really picked up on this. And when I moved to Nashville and I first started getting into the jazz scene and at jam sessions, I just noticed how strong of a community within the musicians there seems to be, and there really is when you dig into it.
I don't know. I don't have a frame of reference. I was in high school and didn't know what the world was like, and then I went to college, and then I moved here. So I don't really have any thing to compare it to. I've traveled to other cities and visited and spent maybe a week at a time in other places. But I definitely feel like that's a thing here because these are our people. We know that. Well, this, for some reason, sound makes you emotional, so we have that in common, so we should hang out. It's kind of a weird thing, but I think it's just like a connection that you can count on with a person.
Which is great, yeah, especially in the context of there being so many great high-level musicians in this city and in this community. That sort of kinship is really something special that I've personally experienced. I always come back to this anytime, I'm on a gig and something might go awry, or I'm teaching a lesson and something, comes up, and what always brings me back, grounds me, is the fact that what we get to do for a living, which is make noise, and like you said, for some reason, makes people feel things.
It's really weird. Yeah.
And it's amazing that we get to live our lives around that, both creating it, sharing it with people, teaching it.
Yeah,
this thing called music.
It's easy to lose that, man. We're in it. That's what I've been doing for like 4 years, or whatever, longer than that, and that's my reality. So I can get perturbed by like, oh, I've got to sit in traffic, or something banal and stupid like that can like derail me, and then it's like, wait a minute, man, like, yeah, or I can get bummed like playing weddings. Come on. It's a party. Yeah. You're there and you're playing music for these people. They love it. They're like probably a little drunk and very happy. How in the world do I get bummed out about that?
How do you personally deal with the instability of being a musician? Because inevitably there are so many things we can't control, but there are a few things that we can, but is there anything that you do that helps sort of focus you or ground you, or do you have a routine that you found particularly helpful?
Staying active, like getting a little bit of exercise, as basic as that sounds. Like if I go for a jog, like I just, it kind of zooms me out a little bit. I do a little bit of volunteering with the Nashville Food Project, and that's like working in a garden, just like a community garden. And I'm super into gardening. That's just like one of my interests. And but something about going there and like doing some labor, it may sound weird, but that I started doing that like years ago. And for some reason, it really helped me out. Just like growing kale, something about it. It's so opposite from what I do, which is just like this intangible, weird service that I provide for people, and that they don't necessarily need. And then I go and like work with my hands and like make food. And it's like everyone needs food. Like you can't get around that. I don't know what it is, but that's always helped keep me sort of grounded through just the ridiculousness. It's been really helpful. But I think that's subjective for everybody. But just like having a hobby that isn't music, it's so important. Yeah.
What about gardening first captivated you, or when did you start getting into that?
I think it's when I discovered the Nashville Food Project. Because I started out volunteering in the kitchens because I like to cook, and I knew how to chop stuff, pretty basic stuff. But eventually I started going out into the gardens just because I thought that was neat, and I just thought it was cool. I think plants are really interesting, and the science behind all that, is really neat. So that just sort of captured my interest. I started my own garden at home, and now I just kind of like it. I mean, and doing a little bit of physical labor, like I said.
Getting outside.
Being outside. Man, I wish our job was outside more. But it dries my reeds out, What can you do? My dad was like my first musical and probably life influence. My mom and my dad. My mother isn't a musician, but she was always extremely encouraging to be well-rounded and to just be cool to people around me, which has served me well, I think. It's pretty solid advice. Yeah. They've both been really supportive. And my dad is a musician and still, and an overall creative person who always pursues different things just for the sake of it. I mean, he's not trying to be rich or famous, He just doesn't want to leave a stone uncovered, it seems like. He's the kind of person that's just tried all these different things. He's done drawing and photography, and he ran a marathon, and he's, knows all the Beatles albums. And he taught me how to play guitar and sing in harmony. So, I mean, that was obviously just foundational. That was before I did anything else. Because those are the people that are around you. That's your reality. Particularly this guy from Spain, Jesus Santandreu. He's the man. He is just this composer and saxophone player who lives in Valencia now, but he happened to be studying conducting while I was there. And he was huge because he was obviously just in a different league of, arts and life and music and all these things, obviously had transcended where my 21-year-old self was. But he just hung out with us and treated us like we were just people, It was just hey, you want to come play some Ebersols? And then he would just destroy me. He was a saxophone player. And he would play all this mind-blowing stuff and be like, cool, yeah, I'm going to make a paella. Do you want one? And just being treated with such a, there was no front. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was just that was huge to me. The fact that they treated me like I had something to say was so huge. And I try and treat all the musicians that I work with the same way, because everyone does. I mean, everyone does.
Yeah.
Coltrane said that. It's easy to go in and hear someone and be like, they're out of tune, they're playing all this whack stuff. This isn't exactly what Coltrane said, obviously. I don't think he said whack.
And I quote.
I like to think that he said whack, but no. But he said, if you listen to somebody and really listen, you're going to find something that you like inside of their playing. And that's big to me.
Technology has had in our lives, and I know we could talk for hours about this. Oof. But that's something that is so fascinating to me, both in how we create and receive music, art, visual art, how it's affected our attention spans. I
mean, that's a huge subject. Specifically to my process, I use music technology to help me write all the time. Like I said, I'm not a really accomplished pianist or anything, but I use that to write because I can't realize, a chord progression that I've never played before on piano all at once at 160 beats per minute. That's just, I haven't put in the time to do that. But I can use something like Finale, or more recently I've been getting into Ableton, and I can use that to be an augmentation of my musical imagination. Yeah. That was quite a sentence. But seriously, I can use it to realize sounds that I might not think of. All these synthesized sounds and and delays and like production things that I hear on records, I can be experimenting with that as I write in real time. And I can say, well, I want this to be faster. What would that sound like? And I can play it, boom, beam, boom, 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 beam, boom, 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 and then speed it up, you know? I mean, as rudimentary and simple as that is, that's a huge tool.
It's not like listening to the naysayers or criticism or positive feedback even. I think it's just being in tune with what people are saying and what other people are saying. And for me, being aware of outsiders or outside opinions comes down to mostly like being aware of what other music is being created or what other ideas or what other technology is being used right now.
Yeah.
And combining that with, like you said, what you personally find exciting.
I've been listening a lot to Fiona Apple. Have you ever checked her out? That first record she put out, she was like 17. And there are some bangers on there. Wow. She's so good. Yeah, and I still really enjoy her as an interpreter too. Like just the way she delivers melodies. It's kind of like cold and detached, but still like in the blues somehow. Yeah, Fiona Apple would be my short answer. And I've been reading this book from Questlove, Creative Quest, which is a book name you get to have if you name yourself Questlove. But it's a great book. It's really, really nice, and it's kind of pointed me towards the roots.
I think the Roots have gotten that public attention recently, especially when Black Thought put out that ridiculous 10 or 12 minute freestyle.
Yeah, I haven't heard this, but people have been mentioning Black Thought to me a lot.
Yeah, he's one of the founding members, of course, of the Roots. Mm-hmm. But he went on this radio show and just did this at least 10-minute long freestyle, and it's incredible. I mean, you just have to check it out.
Is it a diss track?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just...
Not really interested. It's not diss track. I'm just joking. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
In terms of releasing music, I don't know. You know, I put out this record, I'm very happy and I'm very proud of it. I haven't made the money I put into it back, and I don't plan to. Not that I'm against it, but I just don't, that's not why I did it. There's people who are versed in that system and have lots of knowledge about that, and I'm not one of them. I feel like that whole thing is changing as we're looking at it. So I would go to an expert. Bandcamp is awesome. It gives people the ability to pay for your music if they want or not. I just put my music everywhere that I can. Just, you know, and if people want to listen to it, bully for them, you know. I mean, this was probably still in college when I brought music to people and heard them interpret it, and having it be so much more than when I just blink, blink, blink on the piano. I'm not a strong pianist, you know, but that's how I write. And hearing them interpret it and turn it into this thing, that's the most exciting feeling in the world. You know, I mean, that's just, I haven't topped it yet, you know? When I was in college, I wrote this piece for orchestra, and it was like orchestra and saxophone, and I was lucky enough that we partnered with like the recording industry program, and they recorded it. And that's the top, man. Like hearing something that you pulled out of your head and have 40 people interpret it and bring it. I mean, that's just the highest high.
Do you want to play? Play a little bit.
Let's play.